In the autumn of 1861, a 19-year-old girl named Matilda Schorer started vomiting a thin green liquid in central London. Her fingernails turned green. The whites of her eyes turned green. She told her doctor that everything she looked at was green. Within days, she was dead, convulsing and foaming from the mouth and nose. Matilda was not the target of a jealous rival or a political assassin. She died because of her job. She manufactured artificial green flowers for fashionable Victorian ball gowns. Her death is the violent endpoint of a pattern stretching back 6 millennia. Throughout human history, the most desired beauty products and the deadliest poisons were the exact same substances. Women repeatedly painted their faces with lead, mercury, and arsenic, despite centuries of warnings from physicians. In a world where physical beauty determined who a woman married, what she inherited, and whether she survived, slow poisoning was a calculated, rational choice. The pattern begins in Egypt around 4000 BCE, and it starts with eyeliner. Kings, priests, and laborers building the pyramids at Giza all line their eyes with kohl, a thick black paste made primarily from galena, which is lead sulfide. Modern analysis of these ancient cosmetic pots reveals compounds that essentially do not exist in nature. The Egyptians manufactured them through deliberate wet chemistry. When applied to human skin cells, these specific lead compounds trigger a massive burst of nitric oxide, which recruits immune cells to fight off the eye infections that ran rampant in the swampy Nile floodplain. Kohl was an engineered antibiotic. When cosmetic chemistry crossed the Mediterranean to Athens and eventually Rome, the medicinal properties were abandoned, leaving only the poison. Greek and Roman society idolized pale skin because whiteness signaled wealth. It meant a woman lived indoors and never had to labor in the fields. To fake this complexion, women smeared their faces with a chalky, highly corrosive powder made of synthetic white lead. Roman women combined this lead foundation with drops squeezed directly into their eyes from the deadly nightshade plant, Atropa belladonna. The extract chemically paralyzed the muscles of the iris, forcing the pupil to dilate wide for up to 10 days. Dilated pupils are an involuntary biological signal of sexual arousal. Women traded blurred vision, racing heartbeats, and eventual permanent blindness to chemically fake the look of desire. Roman culture demanded women look pale and alluring, sold them poison to achieve it, and relied on enslaved makeup artists to absorb the toxic dust while applying it. Then, writers like Ovid openly mocked the women for wearing it. By the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church codified this double standard. Thomas Aquinas ruled that a woman painting her face out of personal desire was committing a mortal sin of pride. But if she wore cosmetics because her husband demanded she look beautiful, she was fulfilling her wifely duty. A woman's beauty belonged entirely to her husband. To meet that demand, wealthy Renaissance women turned to Venetian Ceruse, an emulsion of basic lead carbonate and vinegar. The vinegar's acetic acid stripped away the skin's natural protective oils. This allowed the heavy metal particles to penetrate the subcutaneous layer, creating a luminous, opaque finish while quietly destroying the tissue underneath. The lead caused tissue decay and scarring. To cover the new blemishes, a woman had to apply even thicker layers of ceruse, accelerating the absorption. Over time, this feedback loop caused hair loss, blackened teeth, infertility, and total organ failure. Queen Elizabeth I weaponized this exact chemical trap out of political necessity. Following a suspected bout of smallpox that left her scarred, she applied ceruse so thickly it dried to an immobile, porcelain-like glaze. As a female monarch with no named heir, any visible sign of aging invited political instability. She used the toxic white paint as a mask to project an ageless, unshakable power to her rivals. While the queen used poison to maintain a throne, ordinary Italian women used it to escape their homes. Since divorce was legally impossible, a network of women sold Aqua Tofana, arsenic dissolved in water and bottled to look like a religious devotional oil. It sat openly on dressing tables alongside perfumes, allowing women trapped in violent marriages to slowly and untraceably assassinate their husbands. As the toxicity of the beauty cycle escalated, cosmetics functioned as a weapon. The state used it to manufacture the illusion of immortality, and desperate women used it to secure their freedom. In the 18th century, the aristocracy layered white lead so thickly it became a uniform. The Irish socialite Maria Gunning was so beautiful that a shoemaker charged a penny just to let people look at her shoe. But when her husband suspected she was secretly wearing rouge at a Paris dinner party, he chased her around the table and violently scrubbed her face with a napkin in front of their guests. She died at 27 in a darkened bedroom, killed by tuberculosis made catastrophically worse by chronic meth poisoning. By the Victorian era, the visible symptoms of tuberculosis itself became the aesthetic ideal. The disease caused severe weight loss, ghostly pale skin, a hectic red flush in the cheeks, and wide, sparkling eyes. To replicate this look of terminal illness, pharmacists sold safe arsenic complexion wafers over the counter. Women willingly ingested these wafers because the arsenic actively destroyed their red blood cells and dilated their capillaries, producing a pale complexion with a faint pink flush. The biology eventually betrayed the aesthetic. Chronic arsenic consumption causes hyperpigmentation, a diffuse, permanent darkening and thickening of the skin. The poison ultimately delivered the exact opposite of the paleness the wearer paid for. The 19th century beauty economy operated on a morbid logic. Women laced their corsets tight, dropped belladonna in their eyes, and ingested heavy metals to mimic the symptoms of consumption. They poisoned themselves to look like they were dying, because society had decided that dying was beautiful. When Marie and Pierre Curie isolated radium in 1898, the cosmetics industry immediately seized upon it. Within a decade, companies were heavily marketing the radioactive element as an anti-aging ingredient, selling radium-infused face creams, soaps, and even radioactive chin straps. The true biological cost emerged in the factories of New Jersey, where young women were hired to paint clock dials with radium-laced luminous paint. To maintain a fine tip on their brushes, supervisors instructed the workers to roll the bristles between their pursed lips hundreds of times a day. Radium mimics calcium in the body, settling directly into the bones and emitting alpha particles that shatter DNA. By 1922, a 24-year-old dial painter named Molly Maggia had her entire lower jawbone crumble and lift out in her dentist's hands. The resulting lawsuits from the Radium Girls, combined with a 1933 FDA public exhibit called the American Chamber of Horrors that displayed photographs of women blinded by unregulated cosmetics, finally forced the hand of the United States Congress. In 1938, they passed the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. It took 6 millennia of history, tracing from Egyptian coal pots to radioactive face creams and the literal disintegration of young women's skeletons, for a government to mandate that beauty products should not be lethal. This chart shows the results of a 2010 FDA follow-up test on 20 name-brand lipsticks sold in the United States. Trace amounts of lead were found in every single one, with a peak reading reaching 7.19 parts per million. The chemical structure that killed Maria Gunning in 1760 remains, in minute quantities, on modern shelves. Safe alternatives like almond oil, beeswax, and crushed berries existed in every era. They were continuously rejected. The safe options were never as luminous, never as dramatically white, and never as expensive. They lacked the extreme visual contrast required to signal high social status. For 6,000 years, the market for toxic beauty was constructed, demanded, and heavily profited from by men. Women absorbed the horrifying physical costs in their teeth, their bones, and their lives, simply to survive within it. If you enjoyed uncovering the hidden stories behind this everyday object, hit the like button, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what everyday item we should investigate next.